the language was definitely my top priority because I wanted to learn the language so bad, just because my dad he knows it. That's his first language, it's his primary language. And, always growing up and hearing him speak it with his brothers and sisters that are here, I was like, man, that is so cool. Such a cool language, because it sounds nothing like, it doesn't even sound like a language. And so I remember in the MTC, I knew basic words here and there, different phrases as well. And so that definitely did help me in learning the language. And, the thing about the Samoan language is it's almost, your tongue is getting twisted all the time because it's mostly consisted of vowels. There's never two consonants together. And so you're always, trying to pronounce the vowels. And the vowels, they pronounce it as A as in A, E as in or I as in E, O as in O, and U as in U. So it's a little different on how they pronounce their vowels than they do here in the States. For example, and almost everything is twice as long in Samoan as it is in English. So, but it does give a better description in Samoan than you could in English. When you say the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to an investigator or someone as well, it takes a while because, for example, it's Olea Kalasia Yesu Kariso Leapa Iwasa Ngata Ai. And so I remember it took me so long to learn that phrase alone, and I was like, I have to say this every day. How am I gonna, remember this? And as time goes on, you can't. I guess a huge thing in learning the language is you can't compare yourself to other missionaries who are doing the same thing, learning the language as well. So I think that's where a lot of people get frustrated, is comparing themselves, because everybody learns at a different pace, and I realized that as well. I was picking it up faster than others just because I heard the words, heard the pronunciation, knew how to pronounce words before, or accustomed to somebody who's never even heard of Samoa before. And the language, it was tough for me because being half Samoan, people out there expected me to already know the language, and so the older ladies out there would always give me the hardest time telling me that I'm Samoan and I don't know the Samoan language. And sometimes I'd get really frustrated, like, I'm trying my hardest to learn this language, and all you guys are doing is putting me down. And it got to the point where, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to take any criticism, so I'm just not going to speak. And, my companion, thank goodness for my companion, he's like, I went through the same thing, because he was half Samoan and he didn't know the language as well. He's like, you just got to, pursue through that. There's going to come obstacles, even if it's from the members or anybody else. It's just that culture that they have, where I feel like sometimes they try to get you irritated so that you'll try harder. And I remember in Neafu, the bishop's wife, I remember I didn't like to see her at church because she was always giving me a hard time, and she would always tell everybody to give me a hard time. And I was like, please, come on, you're the bishop's wife. You're supposed to be helping me. But in the end, like, long story short, taking that as motivation, she helped me step outside my comfort zone. And because the best way to learn the language is by speaking the language. And, she really forced me to speak it. And, by forcing me to speak it, helped me, not be scared to speak in front of these people who know what I'm trying to say. And, I'm grateful for her, even though at the time I wasn't, that, in the long run, I was able to step out of my comfort zone and not be scared to speak in that language. So I guess just, speaking it all the time, because, it's not your first language, and, people out there know it's not your first language as well. So they know you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to make mistakes, but the only way to correct those mistakes is to, what better person to help you fix those mistakes than somebody who knows it and that primary language is theirs. So yeah, it was a fun time. The first basic phrase that we learned in the MTC was the Book of Mormon, and I remember it was difficult for me sometimes because the way they pronounced their vowels, and I thought I was doing good, but my teacher told me I wasn't, because we, with the way we're used to speaking English, we pronounce vowels differently, and so like the Book of Mormon in sort of like a English accent, they would say like Ole Tusia Mamona. So, and the teacher was like, no, that's awful, that's wrong. We're like, okay, we'll step it up. And so we'd try saying not Ole Tusia Mamona, and then hearing how we would listen to videos, and we'd actually hear testimonies from people that have served there or natives from there, and then the way they say it is they have like a deeper voice. They would be the correct way they say is Ole Tusia Mamona, and so they it's almost like they open their mouths a little bit wider when they're pronouncing the A's and O's. Instead of Mamona, it's Mamona. Sort of like, because I remember when before I got my mission call, I would always Samoa was Samoa. And I remember giving my homecoming, or my farewell talk, and would say, I'm grateful to go to Samoa, can't wait to serve in Samoa. And my uncles and dads are like, it's not Samoa, it's Samoa. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll work on that pronunciation. So, I mean, it's you can definitely tell when someone doesn't know the language, and that's probably where that bishop's wife knew I was pronouncing things wrong. Going back to the Church of Jesus Christ, they would say, like in an English accent, you'd kind of be like, Ole Ekalesia Yesu Keriso, where in Samoan you would be more pronouncive on those vowels, Ole Ekalesia Yesu Keriso. So it's really cool to hear the differences, and in the Samoan language, something that I wasn't used to is that T's and K's are interchangeable. So you speak in T's when it's more of a respectful setting, as if you're giving a thank you speech, or if you're bearing testimony or speaking in church, they would use T's, such as like tato would be, which means we. They could interchange it with K's and say kako, which would mean we. And so I remember learning just T's in the MTC, and then going out in Samoa where they would change it to K's. I had no idea what was going on. I was like, okay, they're speaking a whole different language that I did not learn anything in the MTC. And then, realizing that you just gotta, it's more of an ear. And then that's where the gift of tongues comes in there, is just understanding that the T's and K's are interchangeable. And it was really interesting to see that the T's are for respectful terms. I remember because every house that you go to in Samoa, when you leave the house, you give a thank you speech, blessing the family. It's called a whawhatai, which means thanks, and you say whawhatai because the T is being respectful. And, if you're using it like in slang terms, just thanking somebody, like you would use whawhakai. So it's interesting to see how the T's and K's, the K's definitely sound cooler than the T's, but the T's definitely make it sound more respectful when you're speaking that language.